enjoyed this video, go ahead and share this video with all your friends and give this video a like. Today, we will be reading The Unstoppable Garret Morgan, inventor, entrepreneur, and hero. Clang, clang, clang. Young Garret Morgan awoke to the sound of a ringing brass bell. He ran to the window and saw plumes of black smoke rising from the neighboring farm. He woke his younger brother Frank, grabbed the water buckets and raced to help. These types of fires were common for sharecroppers like Garret's parents. Their shacks were made of wood and tar paper that burned smoky, hot, and fast. If people were trapped inside, rescuers had nothing to protect themselves from poisonous smoke. By the time Garret and Frank arrived, only a burned-out shell of the house remained. As they walked back home, the gears in Garret's clever mind turned, trying to think of a way to help. The son of freed slaves, Garret was born in Claysville, Kentucky in 1877, the seventh of 11 children. After the cost of their housing, farm tools, and seed was subtracted from their share, they often found themselves in debt. Innovation became a way of life. Say hi, hello. They often found themselves in debt. Innovation became a way of life for Garret. If his family needed something they didn't have, he figured out a way to make it himself. By the age of 14, curious and creative, Garret was restless for a better life. Segregation was strictly enforced in the South, leaving few prospects for African Americans. Garret went north to find greater opportunity. Garret arrived in Ohio with pennies in his pocket. Having just a sixth grade education and few skills, he took the only job he was offered as a handyman for a wealthy landowner. Although he worked long days, Garret never tired of learning. Each week he set aside money for a private tutor and continued his studies. 4 years later, Garret moved north, hoping to find a better job. Cleveland was becoming a major manufacturing center for the clothing industry. Throughout the garment district, workers used machines to make things that had once been crafted by hand. It was here, with modern machinery whizzing and whirling, ticking and clicking, that Garret's creative nature soared. While working as a janitor for a clothing manufacturer, Garret noticed that the drive and the belts on the sewing machines became slack after a while and often broke. Broken machines frustrated the workers, whose pay depended upon the number of garments they produced. As he learned to do on the farm, Garret solved the problem through his own innovation. He invented a simple but effective belt tightener just adjusted to slack and helped the machine run longer, smoother, and faster. Garret's boss was so impressed by his creativity that he promoted Garret to work as a repairman. Having trouble hearing me. Can everyone else hear me? It might be your device. I don't know. Hi, Gloria. Can you hear me? I don't know, but it wasn't long before word got around that Garret could fix just about anything. A competing manufacturer offered him a job in in 1906, Garret became the company's first black machinist. Okay, well, I think it's just your device, Beth. There, Garret met a German seamstress named Mary Husseck. Mary was equally bright, creative, and hard-working. Garret and Mary were instantly drawn to each other, but black men were not permitted to talk to white female employees. Even a simple conversation with Mary brought a stern warning from the Garret's supervisor. But Garret didn't give up. By now he had to overcome so many obstacles that he lived by a motto. If a man puts something to block your way, the first time you go around it, the second time you go over it, and the third time you go through it. This way of thinking made Garret unstoppable. To be with Mary, Garret figured out a way to go around the obstacle. He quit his job and opened a sewing machine repair shop. Mary admired Garret's boldness. In 1908, Mary and Garret were married. Oh. Cutest thing ever. With Mary's skill as an expert seamstress, Garret expanded the business and began manufacturing affordable clothing for Cleveland's growing black middle class. They named their business Morgan's Cut Rate Ladies Clothing. By 1909, they had 32 employees working on machinery built by Garret himself. Ding, ding, ding! A fire engine's bell rang out as a team of horses whizzed by. Their manes whipped in the wind like the flames racing through the building. At the end of the block, the firefighters prepared to go in, holding their leather helmets in front of their faces to block the heat and smoke. Their efforts proved unless as they stumbled out, gasping for air. When Garret heard about the tragedy, memories of the fires he had witnessed as a boy sparked to life. Though many years had passed, he realized that even the big city firefighters lacked the equipment they needed to save victims. With the gears of his creative mind already turning, Garret headed up to his workshop, determined to find a way to help firefighters breathe in smoke-filled places. Garret knew that smoke and deadly fumes rose with the heat of a fire, leaving a layer of fresh air near the ground. He needed to create a device that could capture this fresh air and lift it up for the firefighters to breathe. He fashioned, I think that's how you say it, a heat-resistant canvas helmet with two long tubes attached, one for inhaling, lined with a wet sponge to cool and filter the air, and one for exhaling, with the value of keeping the stale air from getting back in. Garret spent 3 years crafting and refining his invention. His brother Frank helped him test 3 different helmets. After countless long nights falling asleep at his workbench, Garret finally succeeded. He called it his new invention, the safety hood. Thank you, Diego. In 1912, Garret applied for a patent, which gives an inventor the sole right to make, use, and sell an invention. When his patent, I'm pretty sure that's how you say it, I'm not sure, was granted, Garret entered the safety hood in the 1914 International Exposition of Safety and Sanitation in New York City. Wearing his device for protection, Garret entered a tent filled with smoldering sulfur and tar, remaining there for more than 20 minutes. To shock and amazement of the crowd, he emerged unharmed. The safety hood won in the grand prize gold medal. Garret traveled across the country demonstrating the safety hood to fire departments. Many were impressed by the brilliant invention but refused to consider the safety hood when they discovered Garret was African American. Determined not to let prejudice stop him, Garret called upon his mettle and went over the obstacle this time. He asked a white friend to pretend to be him while Garret posed as his assistant, modeling the hood. Some fire chiefs put the invention through their own rigorous tests, but the safety hood exceeded their expectations. Orders for Garret's devices flooded in. Wow, this man's smart. Hi, Bobby. Let's see now. On July 25th, 1916, Garret Morgan and his safety hood would face the greatest test of all. Garret's telephone rang out in the middle of the night. An explosion had ripped through a tunnel at the Cleveland Waterworks, trapping workers in smoke and deadly fumes hundreds of feet below Lake Erie. One of the rescuers had seen Garret's demonstration. Only the safety hood could save the men underground. With no time to waste, Garret called Frank and raced to help. When Garret arrived at the waterworks, he handed out protective hoods to the firefighters, police, and other volunteers, but the men refused to join him. 2 other rescue parties went down and they have failed to return, Mayor Davis said. Garret knew his time was running out. I'll take a chance, he said. Frank stepped forward. I'll go with you. A man named Tommy Clant spoke up. My father is in there. I will go. Another man volunteered as well. True to his motto, Garret Morgan went straight through the obstacle. Up on the surface, the crowd held its breath, waiting, hoping. Then look, someone's coming out. It was Garret Morgan with Tom Clancy's father. Moments later, Frank Morgan came out with another survivor. The crowd whooped and cheered. When Garret and Frank prepared to go back in the tunnel, the crowd of volunteers grabbed safety hoods to join them. The next day, the story of the rescue men was front-page news, but Garret and his brother were not given credit for their bravery. Only the white volunteers were named and later awarded the Carnegie Medal for heroism. Many people had heard of Garret's heroic actions and grew angry that he was excluded. Dozens of businessmen and elected officials wrote letters to the foundation asking them to correct the injustice. Garret Morgan's desire to help people was a lifelong pursuit. If he saw a need for something, he used his resources to fill it. He continued to improve the safety hood, and in 1917, as the United States prepared to enter World War I, the safety hood was developed into the gas mask that saved thousands of American soldiers' lives. When Garret and other black businessmen were barred from advertising in white-owned newspapers, he started Call, a newspaper in which African Americans could promote their businesses and read fair-minded news about the black community written by black reporters. Wow, this man is amazing. With determination and courage, Garret Morgan went around, over, and through every obstacle between him and his goal to help others. Today, his legacy is all around us. Whenever firefighters rescue people from smoke-filled buildings or motorists and pedestrians safely cross an intersection, we have a brave inventor to thank, the unstoppable Garret Morgan. And that's the end. Well, thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this story. Make sure you give this video a like and make sure you share this video and follow us on Instagram, like our Facebook page, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, guys. And that's it for today, guys. Bye. Hang on. I'm going to end that.
Sorry. How you end it? And are you sure you want to end the live video?